Okay, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I mean, whatever time you are watching, I'm so happy that all of you are here. So today, the person I'm gonna talk about, or my real hero, is real powerhouse of energy, of a person who has taken unexpected path. How many of us will leave our well-paying, settled job for an unsettled life where you are trying to do something for a different section of society, not a different section of a society, but very much our part of society, but forgotten. Like, how many of you will leave your job to work for a cause? Some even differently able people would love to go for a holiday, would love to see the mountains, would love to feel the beaches. A blind person would also like to see the monuments, go for a safari. So, these are things maybe I never thought before. I am from the time I got to know about this person, I have just been thinking about this person and the kind of amazing work she is doing. So I'm sure all of you must be excited. So let's listen it straight from Neha Arora. Neha, a warm welcome to you to Diva Show, whatever I'm trying to do little bit. So you can switch on the camera, Neha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Divya, for having me and for such kind words of yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neha, for joining in at such a short notice and for being such a spirit. I mean, I'm so privileged, honored, and seriously lucky today that I got to know you. Because मुझे लगता था ना कि मैं छोटा काम कर रही हूँ, wow, कितना बड़ा काम कर रही हूँ. I mean, looking at your work, I'm like ashamed of myself कि मैं तो कुछ भी नहीं कर रही हूँ.
No, no, we all are on our own journeys and doing big things in our own way. So don't feel that way.
So you know what? I was going through your website. Ekta, your website is really nice. Very happy feel about that website, I must say. So tell us, Planet Able. This is what is your NGO called, right? So tell us about your childhood, because I was reading about you, and then I found out how your childhood made you think and work on this project. So tell us about your childhood. From We would love to listen it from you rather than anybody else.
Sure. First, Planet Able is not an NGO.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
It's
It's a
a social
general.
enterprise, and yeah.
Right. Right. Sorry. Sorry.
So
Hmm.
no worries, that's okay. So yeah, so coming back, why I started Planet Able and about my childhood, it's because both my parents are persons with disabilities. My father is blind and mother is a wheelchair user, and we never traveled as kids. Okay. So we always saw people going for summer holidays or winter vacations, and ours was just limited to school picnics or grandparents' houses. It was a nuclear family. So, yeah. So that has been the childhood like. And often people asked us, like, who pays your school fees? Because it's assumed that people with disabilities don't work. But both my parents were working, they were in government job and raised us single handedly. So, yeah, so that was the childhood. Like, I would rather say we were pretty much more independent and were given more freedom by our parents than our peers. Because, so in sixth standard, I started going to the bank to deposit my school fees by myself. So things like that, just it just it was another kind of freedom.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. But just that helplessness, especially in like Delhi. I mean, are you brought up in Delhi?
No, I was born and brought up in Agra because my parents were
Okay.
posted there that time.
Okay. So where was your father working?
So he was a teacher in the juvenile jail in social welfare department.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. Wow. I mean, now I know where does the value system come from.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were in Agra. Okay. I mean, whether we are in Agra or Delhi, vacations are much hyped about. I remember, I mean, as a ninth standard student, taking bag and going to Kanyakumari. Like, no, I mean, vacations are an important integral part of our lives. And now, of course, social media makes it a pressure kind of a thing. So how did you manage not to, I mean, what were your thoughts at that point of time? The helplessness was there, or what was it?
It was just that, I mean, it's just that like we saw people going and it was like, okay, we can't go because the places are not accessible, or we cannot, it's not an easy journey to take. It takes a lot of planning and arrangements, and things are not accessible. It would cause a lot of trouble to my parents to actually make it happen. So
Okay.
so even going to the grandparents' houses were, because they lived in Delhi. So even that was the only thing that we compensated with. That, yeah, okay, that is something that we can do.
Okay, okay. So I got to know that you were working with Adobe, right? It's called Adobe or it's called Adobe, by the way.
It's called Adobe.
But I've heard people call it Adobe, and I have heard people call it. I mean, even employees call it
When
Adobe.
I went for the interview, in my interview, I said Adobe, and then the director who was taking my interview said it's Adobe. He didn't even know how to pronounce the company name you're interviewing for. I'm like, okay,
And
that's
I've
okay.
heard employees from that office call it Adobe also. So I'm like really I'm like confused about it. But anyways, you were working with a very well established company at Adobe, and then you left it for something of your own, some a very different kind of career, enterprise, which is trying to help people go for vacations. I mean, that in itself is such an awesome idea. How did it stuck you, and how difficult was the step, taking that first step to leave a good job, a well paying job, and then do this?
So it all started from the point when we started earning. Like that was like way back, like many years ago. And when we started earning, we realized, okay, now we have four earning members. So like apart from my mom and dad, me and my sister. So now maybe more money would solve our problem, and now we can travel. And we pushed ourselves, our parents to let's go. But and we thought money would solve it, but it wasn't the case. You travel 2,000 miles only to realize that the place is not accessible, or it doesn't give you the kind of experience that you would look forward to, or people would pass comments right in your face कि जब इतना problem होता है तो आते क्यों हो, you know and many places are not even willing to accommodate. So uh, the thing was like my parents are conditioned ki theek hai, this is not something for them, let it be, let it go. And most of the people with disabilities in India is like that. But I was not the one like that. I picked up fights everywhere, like whatever that was, mostly at temples or places like that. And those fights were like always ending the vacation in a not so good experience. And one fight turned into a mob fight. And that was the tipping point where my parents put their foot down, never to travel again. Um, that was 2009. And that was like, then I realized, okay, what is the solution? And I could not find any when I looked for it. I talked to more people with disabilities, so either they were not traveling at all or they were facing same sort of trouble. So that was like, okay, now here is a problem that needs to be solved. And it could be a business as well. And let me explore whether it would be financially sustainable. So I'll work for like 2 to 3 years doing the groundwork, sitting at airports, counting the number of people overnight at like big airports. I've sat overnight, talked to hotels, concierges, and all of that. Did my homework, and then one point in 2015, there came a point where I was like, okay, now I'm ready to launch. If not now, then when? So by that time, my parents were retired, and I had bills to pay, rents to pay, and all that. But nothing's gonna was gonna change in a few years if I waited for a few years also. Nothing will change. So I was like, okay, let's see. Let's take it one day at a time or 1 month at a time, and then we'll figure out. And that's when I resigned, and that's when the company was launched on 1st January 2016.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, what kind of challenges have you faced, Neha, in this period of time?
So
Since
challenges
four
starts
years.
from, Yeah, so challenges starts from the point wherein first you had to convince people with disabilities that they can travel, because that was an industry being created that did not exist, or a solution that was not there. And after that, it was the challenge to convince the industry or the hotels also to accommodate the needs, um, that this is also a business, this is not a charity. People will pay when they will consume for a service, because the whole idea is traveling with dignity. So people who can afford to pay, they pay for themselves. So why shouldn't they? I wanted to de-link the charity model of disability, because everyone assumes that people with disabilities don't work or don't work, earn their own livelihood. So that's where it started, and gradually it picked up, because then the inaccessibility at the destinations. So India is not a very accessible country for whatever disability you have. Like, there are no ramps here, or there are no communication or information which is accessible. The websites are not accessible. Nothing is accessible, right? So you really have to make the road to move your vehicle over it. So apart from just running the organization, it's creating that awareness, the ecosystem that people with disabilities want to travel. Make and The destinations need to be accessible. You need to accommodate their needs. You need to treat them as equitable customers and guests, just like you treat anyone else. And it's still on. So yeah.
So it's a long.
Yeah, it is a long fight, but I think things have improved a bit, slowly and gradually. So, yeah.
So is it a very expensive affair for a, I mean, just a query for a disabled person?
So, because of the reason, it is not as budgety as any travel that you can say, because a lot of effort, time, and training goes into destination development. So, before anyone can travel to any place, that destination needs to be made accessible for their needs. So we invest our own money and time and effort into that. We train the whole ecosystem, right from the hotel staff to the guides to the drivers, so that everything in the trip goes seamlessly. And of course, the hotels that are accessible are not. Are which are accessible are available only in higher categories. There are no disabled friendly budget hotels that exist in the country. So these are the challenges, and we work around those challenges. Of course, the cost goes a bit higher than your average budget travel.
And what about people who are cannot pay for their, like,
Yeah, so for them, we have a gift to a program right from the start, because we really don't want to miss out, leave anyone out. So anyone, so it's a fun. So like there are four options wherein you can either pay for one person or 1 day trip to anyone, okay, or I'll pay for their travel, or I'll just contribute to the fund in whatever capacity I have, and then we divert that fund to make people travel who otherwise cannot afford to travel.
that's beautiful. That's amazing. I mean, you have a solution for everything. No doubt. I mean, the kind of work that you are doing, obviously, I mean, you are like a solution person, I must say. That's beautiful, Neha. So any last message, anything that you want people to know? Because you know what, a person like me who's sitting in her comfortable house wouldn't even ever think of something like this. The needs and the requirements of people who are specially abled. So, what kind of message you want to give to everybody who's watching this video right now?
I would say, first, I mean, like just a thing, disability is not something bad that you should avoid, right? It's not a bad word, and disability doesn't make anyone special,
Okay.
right?
Thank you for correcting me. Thank you. So, what will
So,
be the right word to use?
persons with disability. So, you need to go by the. So, I'll tell you, even when I started, I used the same word. And I was corrected by the people, the disability activists, that why and what should I use, and why I should use, because always has to come from the person first language. Because any special word that you give anyone, segments them into a separate group, right?
Right.
But if you treat
Discrimination happens. You're
but
right.
if you treat them, instead of like talking about they or us, we talk all about us, that everyone is involved, and use a person first language. Okay, this person who happens to have a disability, right? Or a disabled person. So, like, that puts them as person first instead of putting them into, that um, any other sugar coated, politically correct, or whatever you can say word for that. So, one, the important thing I would like to say is, don't treat people with disabilities as something separate from the main society. They are part of the society, just like someone might have white hair and someone might have black hair. Some people have a disability which is medically proven. Some people have disabilities which are not medically proven, right? So, and everyone has some sort of limitation, and we just should accept our differences. And of course, uh, try to make the world as inclusive and as accessible as we can in whatever way. So if you are um, building, making anything, make sure it is welcoming and accessible to everyone. Make sure that, you're building infrastructure. Can any sort of person come there? Make sure that no one is excluded, right? So whether a blind person can come in, or a deaf person can come in, or a wheelchair user can come in, or if and like, everyone is included in whichever way. And I think a lot of it should start from inclusive schools, if we can, so that the acceptance builds in children right from the start. Because the judgment in children builds up over the time by what they see their, parents or surroundings, people doing it. But if they normalize disability, the more people with disabilities are seen out in the open, the more normalized it is. So it's not something that, that condescending or sympathetic attitude. We don't need No one needs sympathy, they just need sensitivity and empathy. That, that everyone has needs. Some have different needs, that's about it. So I think that's the only message I would say.
Thank you so much. I think two of my great learnings will be, first, I have to, I mean, I'm not never ever gonna say specially abled. I'm gonna always call it a person with disability. So that is first learning that I got. And the second key, yes, if ever I make a house, which I plan to, so that house will be definitely friendly. It will be the disability friendly house. That,
Thank you.
those are two amazing learnings that I had. And Neha, I have to tell you, I'm so full of gratitude for your presence today. I can't tell you. I mean, maybe I needed this interview more than anybody else, because in life sometimes you have to, I mean, there is a way of showing ki, yes, you see what people are doing and you have a long way to go. So thank you so much, Neha. I'm so happy. I mean, thanks a zillion for the precious time that you gave me today.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you.
So